So as you guys know, or many of you know, hopefully, over the past few weeks I have been experimenting with leveraging AI to teach an old dog new tricks, basically to have a CEO who hasn't coded for 25 years code some new apps. The question though that's been on my mind a bit is what real economic value or what economic leverage have I been able to gain from the use of AI? What did we actually create and how much would it be worth? The way to calculate that was, of course, to write an app, which we did together, and I'm going to walk you through that and also what we learned in the process. It was quite interesting. So what the app does is it goes through all of my GitHub repos and it pulls using the GitHub API the activity data from those repos. But it also goes through and analyzes the repos file by file. And the reason why it has to do that is it turns out there's no good way to ascertain the number of lines in a GitHub repo. What I did was I went and I opened the files and I calculated the number of lines that actually had code on them, ignoring blank space and other things. It also begins to calculate the economic cost of producing all of those files, and I will go into in a few seconds how I calculated those economic outputs. 19 repos in total, about 498 commits over this period of time. You can see here the activity by day of week and by week. I had an initial flurry at the beginning as I was trying to figure out if this was something I wanted to go and explore. And then I got serious about it, maybe 6-8 weeks ago or so. And you can see that most days I tried to do something. The way it tended to balance out, so kind of between 6 and 8 on the average day, I tried to do some work, and then maybe 8 to 10 on a Saturday, and then occasionally a little bit later in the day as I had time. Now, this wasn't all clumped around morning and evening activity, though, because one of the nice things was I could keep an eye on the AI running on one of my screens, and as it had a question occasionally, I would go and give it an answer, and off it would go and keep working. And so it was producing far more effort than I was expending keeping an eye on it. The repos then have been analyzed. So about 732 files across those repos, about 68,000 lines of code, on average 93 lines per file. I found that the shorter the file length, the less error prone the AI was. Now, you'll see the distribution of languages. I did a little Swift. It's not on this chart because it's so small, but mostly TypeScript, JavaScript, and some Python. And down here you can see a breakdown of all of the repos. What's interesting about this, though, is I can open up a repo and I can see all of the files in the repo. I can see the distribution of files by type. And then I can go to any one of the files and I can have Claude analyze the file and provide a summary of what the file does. So you can see here, this is a Flask app. This is the main roots file. These are the various functions. Here are the core dependencies that this file has, and here are some suggestions from Claude to make it better. The economics is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. So what do those 68,000 lines of code actually mean? If you assume a developer costs $100,000 a year and produces about 15 lines of production code per hour, post-code reviews and so on, and when you kind of crunch all the numbers, that came out to about $341,000 of development cost, or 10 developers for the period of this 10-week, 12-week period of activity that I had. So the gray bar here is what effort, in theory, I put into it, probably a little bit more than that, but let's just assume that's okay for the time being. And the green bar is the economic leverage that I was able to get from the AI. And then you can take a look at the various projects here and look at the rough economic cost of each project in terms of development hours and development cost. While this cost $341,000 of nominal development time, the fun I've had was priceless.